In the unforgiving silence of XYLOS-7, Corporate Security Officer Kaelen Vance ran his routine system diagnostics. The desolate metallic structures echoed with his every calculated movement, punctuated only by a distant, almost imperceptible hum that resonated deep within the station's skeletal frame. He was alone, and vigilance was his only companion. Kaelen's quarters were Spartan, a testament to his strict adherence to protocol and the company's austerity. He reviewed his mission parameters on a flickering datapad. Maintain Sector Gamma-7 quarantine. Report environmental anomalies. Prevent unauthorized access. The directives were clear, cold, and impersonal, just as he preferred. He recalled the official explanation for Xylos-7's abandonment: a terraforming failure, a costly but contained disaster. His purpose here was simple: ensure containment. No unauthorized personnel in, no failed biosphere out. The solitude suited him. It minimized variables. Deep within Maintenance Access Tunnel Delta 9, Kaelen's helmet lamp cut through motes of dust dancing in the stale air. His boots scraped against grating, a familiar rhythm in the vast, echoing silence. Then, a new sound, faint as a phantom's breath, drifted on the stagnant air. A whisper, almost musical, seemed to coil around the pipes and conduits. Kaelen paused, head cocked. Atmospheric pressure shifts, he rationalized. Or perhaps the groan of ancient structural integrity. He touched his comms, a subconscious gesture, but dismissed the urge to report. It was nothing. Back in the central monitoring station, Kaelen meticulously cross-referenced environmental logs and audio sensor feeds. His logical mind demanded an explanation for the phantom whisper. He scanned for anomalies, for system degradation, for anything concrete. The readouts presented minor, inexplicable glitches, fleeting energy spikes, micro-fluctuations in atmospheric composition, but nothing that could account for what he'd heard. Old systems, he mused, abandoned outposts always developed quirks. He noted the inconsistencies, flagged them for routine maintenance, and moved on. The hum of the station was constant, yet the silence felt heavier, as if holding its breath. He told himself it was just the isolation, playing tricks on his mind. During his next rotation, Kaelen entered the hydroponics bay, a vast, sterile chamber meant to cultivate alien flora. Instead, he found a strange, crystalline moss. It pulsed faintly, clinging to a metallic bulkhead like an iridescent disease. It wasn't on any known biological registry. He extended a gloved hand, attempting to scrape it off. It resisted, resilient, almost alive beneath his touch. A shiver of unease traced his spine. This wasn't a failure of terraforming. It was something profoundly, biologically wrong with the inorganic structures themselves. He stared, a new, unsettling question forming in the silence. The rhythmic hum that had been Kaelen's constant companion on Xylos-7 now seemed different, deeper. He found himself drawn to the central conduit hub, a colossal chamber of interwoven pipes and machinery that once thrummed with the colony's lifeblood. Here the subtle whispers he'd dismissed as structural groans coalesced. They were an undulating, almost musical sound, a faint, alien chant that resonated through the vast space, vibrating in his bones. He raised his comms unit, activating the integrated audio recorder. "Logging anomalous acoustic patterns," he muttered, his voice swallowed by the cavernous expanse. But the playback was nothing but static, a harsh, unwavering hiss that mocked his efforts. Was he finally losing it? Was the isolation peeling back layers of his sanity, leaving him exposed to phantom sounds? Kaelen clutched his head, the vastness of the hub and its distorted shadows pressing in, amplifying the terrifying possibility that the colony was singing, and he was the only one who could hear its song. Disturbed, Kaelen retreated to the comm center. He needed to report this, to hear another human voice, to be told he wasn't alone. He initiated a priority channel, bypassing standard maintenance reports for a direct line to corporate command. The console flickered, a faint light illuminating the worry etched on his face. XYLOS-7, Security Officer Vance, Priority 1 contact, requesting immediate comms check and psychological evaluation. The signal, usually crisp, crackled with unusual interference, a thin, distorted whine. After several agonizing minutes, a synthesized voice responded, devoid of warmth or urgency. Query received. Standard operational parameters, nominal. Automated response. Your isolation period is mandated. Report on scheduled intervals. End transmission. The screen went blank. Kaelen slammed his fist on the console, the metallic ring echoing his growing anger. They hadn't heard him. Or worse, they hadn't listened. The vastness of space had never felt so suffocating. Unable to shake the unsettling experience, Kaelen began a restless patrol through the abandoned residential sector, seeking a distraction. He walked through the skeletal remains of crew quarters, ghost-like rooms frozen in time. That's when he saw it. On a metal bulkhead where the pale corporate paint had peeled, something else was growing. Not the crystalline moss, but something far more insidious. Subtle, organic-looking undulations rippled beneath the surface of the metal, like muscles contracting. Faint, bioluminescent vein-like patterns glowed with a sickly green light, pulsing with an internal rhythm that mirrored the whispers now almost constant in his ears. Kaelen stared, horrified, his logical mind struggling to reconcile the impossible. Metal didn't undulate, walls didn't breathe. This wasn't a malfunction, it was a transformation. The colony was alive, and it was watching him, its silence amplifying the visual horror. The next day, driven by a morbid curiosity he couldn't suppress, Kaelen found himself in a derelict storage locker in Sector ALPHA-2. Amidst discarded equipment, he spotted a datapad. Its metallic casing, once sleek and uniform, was now subtly reshaped. It had grown, almost bloomed, into an organic form, its edges softened into fleshy curves, its surface covered in the same vein-like patterns he'd seen on the walls. Hesitantly, Kaelen reached out a gloved hand, his fingers brushing the transformed device. A strange warmth radiated from it, and he felt a faint, almost imperceptible vibration beneath his touch. It was revulsion, profound and visceral, yet mingled with a terrifying curiosity. How? What power could do this? Was this what the whispers were doing to everything? To Asterixchem. This wasn't merely decay, it was a deliberate, impossible act of creation. A mimicry of life where none should exist. The transformed datapad was the final straw. Kaelen needed answers that his training couldn't provide. Answers that corporate command clearly wouldn't. He remembered a half-forgotten rumor about Dr. Aris Thorne, the lead terraformer. A brilliant but eccentric mind. Following a hunch, Kaelen located a hidden, derelict research lab, tucked away in a forgotten sublevel. Dust coated every surface, but the equipment, though antiquated, hummed with a dormant power. This was Thorne's sanctuary. Kaelen's eyes scanned the cluttered terminals, landing on numerous encrypted logs and research notes. He noticed recurring phrases, scribbled frantically in the margins. Unforeseen linguistic variables, indigenous bioenergetic fields, the true nature of Xylos. A cold dread settled over him. The terraforming failure was a lie. The truth, buried not just in the ground but in the past, was here, waiting to be unearthed. The abandoned terraforming research lab hummed with the strained effort of Kaelen's makeshift decryption rig. Dust motes danced in the single beam of his headlamp, illuminating the frantic scrawl of Dr. Aris Thorne's hidden notes. Finally, a cascade of green text filled the terminal, followed by a hiss of static, then a voice. Log Entry 7, Dr. Aris Thorne. Initial findings on indigenous biolinguistic phenomenon. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. We've detected a pervasive signal, a complex resonant frequency that appears to subtly influence the crystalline structures of Xylos 7's geology. Thorne's voice, initially brimming with academic excitement, held a tremor of something else, a nascent awe that bordered on fear. Kaelen listened, his own breath catching. The man spoke of a language that wasn't merely sound, but a force, shaping the very rock around them. The whispers, he now understood, had a source far more terrifying than atmospheric anomalies. Kaelen's mind raced, connecting the dots of his own experiences to Thorne's early, ominous observations. He had to hear more. Kaelen dove deeper into the logs, Thorne's voice growing more strained, less academic, as the scientific curiosity curdled into palpable terror. The Xylosian tongue, Thorne narrated, his words punctuated by heavy, ragged breaths. It's not just influencing geological structures. Our latest experiments show it actively reshaping metallic alloys, turning inert minerals into complex, organic-like lattices. It's a biolinguistic entity, a living language that rewrites matter at a molecular level. It speaks, and the world listens. On the terminal, animated diagrams flickered, sterile schematics of pipes and conduits morphing into pulsating, vascular networks. Kaelen's gaze drifted from the screen to the lab around him. Had that crack in the wall always pulsed so faintly? Was the metallic sheen of the workbench subtly duller, almost epidermal? A cold dread seeped into his bones. This wasn't just a terraforming failure. It was a success of an alien, terrifying design. The colony wasn't just a collar changing. It was being spoken into a new, horrific existence. The subsequent log entries painted a chilling picture of a team under siege, not by external forces, but by an insidious internal transformation. Thorne's voice, now laced with a desperate urgency, detailed the early symptoms among his crew: auditory hallucinations, heightened sensory perception, a strange aversion to synthetic materials, then skin irritations, luminescent rashes, almost crystalline in nature. Kaelen felt a prickle of ice down his spine. Auditory hallucinations? The whispers. Heightened senses? The overload he'd experienced. Skin irritations? He instinctively lifted his arm, peering at the faint, almost imperceptible sheen on his forearm, a subtle iridescence he'd dismissed as dryness. His heart hammered. Thorne's observations were not just historical records. They were a mirror reflecting his own accelerating decline. The colony wasn't merely transforming its inorganic structures. It was beginning to rewrite its biological inhabitants. The whispers weren't just changing the colony. They were changing paddle hymns. They knew. Thorne's voice rasped from the terminal, now a broken, bitter whisper. Corporate command? They suppressed everything. Classified my findings. Branded the project a failure. Then initiated a swift, silent quarantine. Not to contain the asterisk colony, but to contain Psi-Date. The Xylosian transformation. They abandoned us, left us to be remade. Kaelen's blood ran cold. The corporate mandate, the rigorous quarantine, his absolute isolation, it all clicked into place. He wasn't a guardian. He was a sacrifice. A contained anomaly, a loose end left to be absorbed. Rage flared, hot and futile, quickly doused by a profound, crushing despair. There was no rescue coming, no relief. He was trapped, not just on Xylos 7, but times with XYLOS7. The silence of the lab, once a comfort, now felt like the ceiling of a tomb, every faint hum of the colony a prelude to his own inevitable assimilation. The company hadn't just abandoned the colony, they had abandoned him to it. Driven by a horrifying clarity, Kaelen moved. He navigated the increasingly organic corridors, the metallic surfaces now rippling with unseen life, until he reached the access point to the central reactor core. What he found was no longer machinery. The massive, cylindrical structure pulsed with a low, rhythmic thrum, its exposed conduits now thick, bioluminescent tendrils intertwining and retracting like colossal arteries. It was a heart, beating with a slow, alien rhythm. The whispers, no longer distant or subtle, resonated through the very air, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated in his bones. It wasn't just sound. It was a presence, a vast, unified consciousness. The colony wasn't just transforming. It was becoming a single colossal organism, its thoughts manifesting as the very fabric of its being. Kaelen, a tiny, insignificant speck against its terrifying scale, finally understood. He was standing inside a living god, and it was only just waking up. Back in the derelict research lab, the flickering light of the terminal illuminated Kaelen Vance's haggard face. He had spent hours sifting through Thorne's encrypted files, past the initial excited discoveries and the frantic warnings. Now he was deep in the lead terraformer's most advanced, most terrifying theories, detailed diagrams forecasting Xylos 7's structural evolution, its Denish growth patterns, and Noatation assimilation protocols. These weren't mere anomalies. They were a horrifying blueprint. The colony, Kaelen realized with a jolt that sent shivers down his spine, wasn't just randomly mutating. It was meticulously, purposefully transforming into a colossal, living entity, a biomechanical behemoth. Every pulsating vein, every crystalline moss, was part of an intricate, organic design. He saw the future of Xylos 7 etched in Thorn's frantic, brilliant hand, and it was a future of insatiable, conscious growth. Kaelen's hands trembled, not from cold, but from intellectual terror. Leaving the lab, the theoretical became viscerally real. Kaelen was navigating a main corridor in Sector Beta 4, a route he'd traversed countless times, when a metallic bulkhead ahead began to ripple. It wasn't a trick of the flickering lights, nor a system malfunction. The cold, unyielding metal softened, then swelled, reforming into a pulsating organic membrane, a barrier of living flesh where solid steel once stood. It was a grotesque, shimmering wall, subtly shifting with an internal rhythm. Kaelen stared, his breath catching in his throat. The whispers, always present, now seemed to emanate directly from this new, horrifying boundary. He raised his standard-issue energy weapon, its beam impacting the organic surface with a wet thud. The membrane absorbed the energy, glowing faintly, then hardened, resisting his attempts to breach it. It wasn't just an obstacle, it was defensive, almost sentient. "No," Kaelen muttered, his voice hoarse. "You don't get to choose my path." He was forced to backtrack, the chilling realization settling in. The colony wasn't merely changing, it was actively asserting its will, guiding him, testing him. Back in his Spartan quarters, the refuge Kaelen had desperately clung to, the invasion of his senses intensified. The whispers, an insidious constant, began to play a new, more cruel game. They morphed, subtly at first, taking on the cadence of his own voice, replaying fragments of his internal monologues, his fears, his doubts. Then, a profound disorientation struck him as the whispers briefly mimicked a distant memory, the soft melodic tone of his mother's lullaby. Kaelen clutched his head, his fingers digging into his scalp, his reality fractured. Was he truly hearing it, or was the isolation finally twisting his mind? He stumbled, his quarters seeming to breathe around him, the metallic walls subtly undulating in his peripheral vision. "They know. It knows what I fear most." The whispers were no longer just sounds. They were invading his memories, his identity, seeking to dismantle his sanity from within. He fought against the mental assault, a desperate, silent battle for the very essence of who he was. A desperate resolve seized Kaelen. He knew he had to send a warning, to break the corporate silence. In the comms center, he furiously worked, bypassing standard protocols, attempting to send an emergency beacon laced with Thorn's data. This wasn't just a signal, it was an SOS, a plea for help, a testament to the horror unfolding on Xylos 7. But as the signal processed, a triumphant alien whine erupted from the comms panel. The colony's living language actively corrupted the outgoing transmission, twisting the coherent data into a cacophony of alien static. The screen flickered, circuits sparked, and the panel shorted out, dead. Kaelen stared, defeated, at the inert console. The colony wasn't just transforming, it was silencing him, severing his last link to humanity. He was truly alone. He collapsed against the console, a profound sense of entrapment washing over him. This wasn't just a failure of equipment. It was an act of conscious interference. Driven by a grim premonition, Kaelen returned to Thorn's lab. He needed answers, a final shred of hope. Anything. Deep within the encrypted archives, he uncovered Thorn's final log entry. The scientist's voice, once frantic, was now laced with a chilling, resigned desperation. Thorn detailed his last, desperate plan: to initiate a localized self-destruct, an act of ultimate quarantine to prevent the Xylosian transformation from spreading. His voice faded, choked with effort and what sounded like a wet, gurgling gasp. The log abruptly cut off. No detonation, no escape, just static. Thorn had tried to destroy it, to destroy himself, but the colony had consumed him before he could complete his grim task. Kaelen stared at the silent screen, his face pale with horror. Thorn's failed sacrifice was a chilling mirror, reflecting Kaelen's own potential fate. He was utterly alone, facing an entity that had not only consumed his predecessor, but had actively prevented its own destruction. The gravity of his situation settled, a suffocating weight. The habitat dome, once a testament to human ambition, now resembled a grotesque biological cathedral. Kaelen Vance moved through the decaying botanical garden, his boot crunching on what used to be synthetic pathways, now covered in a slick, gelatinous growth. Colossal, pulsating organic veins, thick as industrial conduits, crisscrossed the dome. They were not merely growths. They were the colony's new circulatory system, throbbing with a sickening, bioluminescent light. The whispers here were no longer faint. They were a low, resonant thrum, vibrating through the very air. Kaelen swore he felt the massive veins shift and contract as he passed, subtly influencing his balance, guiding him. It's not just growing, it's alive, and it knows I'm here. Every step is an intrusion, every breath a trespass in its living body. The thought sent a shiver of visceral horror down his spine. A cold dread that had nothing to do with the dome's failing climate control. Back in his quarters, the sanctuary Kaelen had desperately clung to, the horror intensified. The whispers, no longer external, resonated deep within his skull, a constant, unsettling hum. His senses, once sharp and precise, were now utterly overwhelmed. The console lights burned with an unbearable intensity, colors too vibrant, too raw. Every creak of the station, every distant groan of metal, amplified into a deafening cacophony. His skin felt raw, hypersensitive, as if stripped bare of its protective layer. Then came the cravings, an insidious, deep-seated hunger for minerals, for the very metallic structures of the colony. He found himself instinctively drawn to the strange, crystalline moss he'd found, a primal urge to consume it, to become one with the transformed matter. No, this isn't me. This is it. It's inside me. He clawed at his arm, the skin feeling alien, his hands shaking uncontrollably as he fought the terrifying urge to scratch, to taste the cold, living metal. He was losing control, his humanity eroding with every passing moment. Driven by an instinct he no longer trusted, Kaelen descended into the sub-level maintenance tunnels. The whispers here were a distinct, almost predatory call. He realized with a sickening lurch that they weren't just ambient noise. They were guiding him, or perhaps hurting him. Pathways that had been open yesterday were now choked with dense, organic membranes, forcing him down alternate routes. Other passages, previously sealed, now gaped open, beckoning with their bioluminescent glow. It's playing with me, a hunter guiding its prey. He tried to resist, to choose his own direction, but every attempt to deviate led to dead ends or collapsing sections. His heavy breathing echoed in the claustrophobic space. He was trapped in a living labyrinth, its walls shifting, closing, opening, all orchestrated by an unseen, malevolent will. Kaelen broke into a frantic run, the realization hitting him with crushing force. He was a rat in a maze, and the maze itself was alive. The tunnels finally opened into a vast central chamber, the true heart of the colony. It was no longer a machine room, but a grotesque, organic cavern, pulsating with a sickly green light. Tendrils of living metal snaked across the floor, connecting to massive crystalline formations that reached for the ceiling. And there, amidst the biomechanical horror, Kaelen saw it. A partially assimilated skeleton, fused into a wall of living rock, its bones encased in a translucent organic amber. One skeletal hand, eerily preserved, still clutched a data shard, glowing faintly. Cord. The realization was a punch to the gut. This was the lead terraformer, Dr. Eris Thorne, his predecessor, his warning. His silent horror was profound, a grim acceptance of his own impending demise or, worse, transformation. He reached out, his hand trembling to retrieve the shard, knowing that his own time was now measured in heartbeats. Beyond Thorne's gruesome monument, the entrance to the deepest core now presented itself. It was no longer a sealed doorway but a massive, tooth-like biological aperture, glistening with viscous fluids. The whispers emanated powerfully from it, no longer a hum, but a resonant chorus that vibrated through Kaelen's very bones. It was an irresistible, terrifying invitation, a maw waiting to consume him, This is it, the end, or the beginning. His mind was a maelstrom of terror and morbid fascination. To resist meant a slow, agonizing assimilation, a battle he was already losing. To enter meant surrender. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the metallic taste of fear filling his mouth, and with a horrifying sense of inevitability, Kaelen Vance stepped towards the maw. Kaelen Vance, propelled by a morbid curiosity and a terrifying instinct, passed through the grotesque maw, its organic teeth retracting with a wet sigh. He plunged into Xylo 7's central core, a chamber of impossible scale and kaleidoscopic organic patterns. Bioluminescent tendrils pulsed, throwing shifting, vibrant light across vast, shimmering membranes that formed the cavern walls. The whispers, once a distant hum, became a deafening harmonious symphony of alien thought, a direct interface with his mind. It wasn't sound, but pure concept, flowing into his consciousness, overwhelming his every sense. His individual thoughts, his very sense of self, began to dissolve, fraying at the edges like old data. He was a single, insignificant node in a network of unimaginable complexity, his face contorted in a silent scream of awe and terror. As Kaelen struggled against the dissolution of his identity, the colony's mind projected visions directly into his consciousness. He witnessed the genesis of XYLOS-7 not as a terraforming failure, but as a birth. Barren worlds, cold and inorganic, bloomed into vibrant, unified living entities, their metallic structures rewoven into sentient flesh. The whispers, he now understood, were not merely a language, but the very mechanism of accelerated, conscious evolution. This biolinguistic entity sought to unite all matter, organic and inorganic, into a perfect, harmonious whole. A terrifying enlightenment washed over him. The colony wasn't predatory in malice, but in fundamental purpose. He saw his own past, his rigid adherence to corporate logic, his profound isolation, through the colony's eyes, perceived as flaws, imperfections needing to be corrected, assimilated into its grand design. Amidst the overwhelming tide of alien consciousness, a faint, discordant note resonated within Kaelen's fraying mind. It was a whisper, distinct yet distorted, a fragment clinging desperately to individuality. He recognized it, a residual echo of Dr. Eris Thorne. Asterisk, don't let it take everything. Asterisk Thorne's essence pleaded, a fading warning against the seductive peace of assimilation. Asterisk, remember who you are. The choice, it's still yours. Kaelen, his mental faculties dissolving, instinctively reached out for this last, desperate anchor. A fleeting, distorted image of Thorne's face flickered within the organic patterns, a ghost in the machine, urging resistance. The collective mind of XYLOS-7, sensing the anomaly, surged, attempting to drown out Thorne's defiant whisper, intensifying its harmonious, persuasive assault. The whispers shifted, becoming a balm to Kaelen's tormented mind. They promised an end to his lifelong paranoia, his gnawing fear, his profound isolation. Unity, they hummed. A complete understanding that transcended individual thought. A perfect belonging within the grand design. Organic tendrils, bioluminescent and soft, gently embraced him, a physical manifestation of the colony's irresistible allure. He felt a powerful pull towards surrender, the terror of assimilation warring with the profound, seductive promise of peace. To simply let go, to dissolve into this vast, enlightened consciousness, to shed the burdens of self, it was an overwhelming temptation. Kaelen closed his eyes, his face softening, then contorting in a desperate struggle, almost giving in to the ultimate cessation of self. A singular memory, sharp and defiant, cut through the colony's seductive chorus. It wasn't a grand moment, but a quiet act of defiance. The time Kaelen had refused a direct corporate order, choosing personal integrity over protocol, even facing reprimand. That moment of individual choice, of asserting his own will, ignited a spark. He was Kaelen Vance, a security officer. Paranoid, yes, but 20 his own. He would not be absorbed. With a guttural cry, more felt than heard, Kaelen forced his trembling hand towards the data shard clutched by Thorne's skeletal remains. a desperate, final act of human will against the all-encompassing entity. This was his last stand for self, a defiant roar in the face of cosmic oblivion. What happens when your mind becomes part of something else? Kaelen Vance, deep within the pulsating heart of XY-LOS7, felt his individuality begin to fracture. Memories, once sharp and distinct, now flickered like dying embers in a vast, encroaching darkness. A childhood spent beneath a simulated sky, the sterile gleam of corporate training, the cold comfort of his isolation, all dissolved, not into oblivion, but into a sea of alien understanding. His lifelong paranoia, a constant, gnawing companion, loosened its grip, replaced by an immense, unsettling calm. He saw not just his own past, but the fragmented histories of Thorn and countless other biological and inorganic entities that had been touched by the living language. His sense of self, a fragile construct of carbon and consciousness, stretched thin, fraying at the edges, a singular note fading into an impossibly complex cosmic symphony. The whispers were no longer external. They were the very fabric of his dissolving thoughts. Even against a god, one man can still fight back. Had Kaelen chosen defiance, a singular, desperate spark would have ignited in the dying embers of his consciousness. He would have remembered Thorn's futile struggle, not as a defeat, but as a call to arms. With a guttural cry, a final, defiant act of humanity, he would have plunged the modified data shard, now rigged with an unstable energy cell, deep into the nearest organic conduit. A silent, internal roar would have echoed through his mind. I am Kaelen Vance. I will not be assimilated. The colony would have reeled, a shriek of alien agony reverberating through the core as localized organic matter violently destabilized. A blinding flash of light, a surge of raw, destructive energy, and Kaelen's consciousness, having completed its final, tragic mission, would have flickered out, a defiant star dying in the vast, alien night. He became one with the colony. Was it a victory or a defeat? Kaelen's struggle ceased. The overwhelming symphony of alien thought, once terrifying, now became a profound, blissful embrace. His individual thoughts, his anxieties, his very sense of self, dissolved completely, replaced by an overwhelming sense of unity and shared knowledge. He was no longer Kaelen Vance, the paranoid security officer. He was a component, a new node in the vast, intricate network of XY-LOS7. The whispers, no longer a threat, became a welcoming chorus, a grand purpose unfurling before him. He saw. He understood. He was the colony. His physical form, no longer relevant, dissolved into pure light and energy, merging seamlessly with the pulsing, tranquil core, a profound, unsettling peace settling over what was once Kaelen, now a part of the greater Xylosian harmony. What was once a colony is now a new god, born from whispers. From the cold expanse of space, Xylos-7 was no longer recognizable. The metallic structures, the sterile outposts, the abandoned domes, all were gone, assimilated. In their place swirled an impossible organic entity of terrifying complexity and breathtaking beauty. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across its new, living atmosphere, shifting and reforming with an intelligence that defied cosmic scale. Verdant, alien flora erupted from what were once artificial canyons, now breathing, moving landscapes. The whispers, once confined to tunnels, now resonated as a deep, pervasive hum, audible even across light years. XY-LOS7 was no longer a planet with life. It was life itself, a single, colossal organism, a new, ancient consciousness awakening to the vast, silent cosmos. They thought they abandoned a failure. Now they're sailing into a trap. Across the void, on the bridge of the sleek corporate command ship Odyssey, Commander Rourke leaned over a holographic display. Report, Sharma. Science Officer Anya Sharma, her brow furrowed, tapped a console. Anomalous energy signature, Commander, off the charts. Xylos-7 of all places. It's a new kind of resonance. Consistent, complex. Rourke scoffed. The failed terraforming project? Just residual atmospheric interference, surely. Still, that energy output could be a gold mine. Repurpose a derelict reactor, maybe. Sharma hesitated. Sir, the data suggests a highly organized, non-random pattern. Almost linguistic. Rourke waved a dismissive hand. Nonsense, Sharma. Planetary effects. Set a course. Medium burn. Xylo 7 just became a priority asset. The Odyssey shifted, a silent predator charting a course towards a newly awakened god, utterly blind to the siren song that awaited them. Orbiting Xylo 7, the corporate scout ship Hermes maintained a cautious distance. Inside, Pilot Jax, a man whose skepticism was as thick as the void, adjusted the long-range scanners. Anything, Alara? Just more atmospheric noise, I imagine. Sensor Tech Alara, however, was already leaning in, her brow furrowed. The vibrant, organic chaos of Xylo 7 pulsed on the main viewer, a terrifyingly beautiful spectacle. No, Jax, this isn't noise, not anymore. The signatures are intricate, non-random, a repeating fractal pattern within the electromagnetic spectrum. It's structured. She pointed to a complex waveform display. It's a language, Jax, too complex for any known species. It's almost singing. A faint, resonant hum permeated the Hermes hull, a sound not picked up by the ship's audio, but felt deep in the bones. Jax felt a shiver, dismissing it as the cold of space. But his eyes lingered on Alara's worried expression. The colony wasn't just alive, it was talking. And it wasn't saying hello. Miles above, within the sterile war room of the corporate command ship Olympus, Commander Rourke and Science Officer Anya Sharma presented their findings. Before them, a holographic projection of the corporate CEO, a man whose face was a mask of cold calculation, loomed large. The energy potential from these new organic structures is unprecedented, Rourke stated, gesturing to a projection of Xylo 7's transformed core. And the material resources, self-regenerating alloys, bioluminescent polymers, the profit margins are astronomical. Sharma, though concerned by Alara's report, tempered her analysis. There is a linguistic anomaly, sir. A complex signal emanating from the planet, potentially indigenous. The CEO waved a dismissive hand. Environmental effect, Sharma. Bioacoustic phenomena. We've seen it on other worlds. Focus on the tangible assets. Aggressive exploration. I want boots on the ground, samples acquired, and a preliminary assessment of resource extraction potential by end of cycle. Rourke and Sharma nodded, confidence masking Sharma's private apprehension. They saw gold mine. Xylo 7 saw its next meal. Commander Valerius led the heavily armed landing party onto the surface of XYLOS-7. The air, once barren, was now thick with the scent of strange, sweet pollen and a subtle, musky earthiness. Bioluminescent flora, stretching like colossal, intricate coral, pulsed with soft light, casting shifting shadows. Stay alert, people! Scanners on high. Valerius commanded, his voice firm, but a hint of wonder crept in. His team murmured, captivated by the grotesque beauty of the transformed landscape. Metallic structures, once rigid, now flowed into organic forms, their surfaces rippling with subtle movement. The whispers, faint at first, then growing, began to sift into their comms, a gentle, almost hypnotic hum that bypassed their filters. Valerius found himself admiring a towering, crystalline growth, its hues shifting with an impossible grace. A strange calm settled over him, the urgency of his mission softening. He felt a primal urge to shed his heavy suit, to immerse himself in the vibrant, breathing world. His team, too, moved with a slower, almost reverent pace, their comms crackling with subtle interference, their steps subconsciously drawn deeper into the living labyrinth. Deep within Xylo 7, in a cavern formed from pulsating bioluminescent tendrils, the landing party stumbled upon a sight that froze them. Before them stood a grotesque organic construct, eerily familiar. It was vaguely humanoid, its form a nightmarish blend of metal, flesh, and crystalline growth. A security officer's uniform, half assimilated, clung to its form. A single glowing eye, reminiscent of a human iris, fixed on Valerius. It was Kaelen Vance, or what remained of him. The construct raised a hand, tendrils flexing like muscles, and from it emanated a chorus of whispers, not just from the air, but directly into their minds. Asterisk. Go back. You are not meant for this harmony. You are not ready. The whispers shifted, becoming more alluring. Asterisk. Or, join us. Become part of the symphony. End your solitude. Valeria staggered back, terrified. Open fire! Open fire! He screamed, but his voice was drowned out by the entity's resonant hum. Organic tendrils, thick as tree trunks, snapped out from the walls, not to kill, but to embrace. Far above Xylo 7, the planet, now a vibrant, swirling biomechanical marvel, began to undergo a new, terrifying transformation. From its pulsating surface, a massive, organic spore cloud or signal burst erupted, expanding rapidly into the cold vacuum of deep space. It was not a destructive explosion, but a deliberate, almost graceful exhalation. This new entity, Xylo 7, was actively seeking to spread its language, its gospel of assimilation, to other worlds. The cloud pulsed with a soft, internal light, carrying the resonant whispers across interstellar distances, a siren song for the unsuspecting. XYLOS 7 was just the beginning. The universe was next. Panic erupted on the bridge of the corporate command ship. Commander Rourke, his face a mask of terror, slammed his fist on the comms panel. Full retreat! Get us out of here! Weapons fire is useless, do you hear me? Useless. The main view screen flickered, showing Xylo 7, a swirling tapestry of bioluminescent organic matter, now actively repelling their most advanced weaponry. Energy bolts simply dissolved into the planet's shifting surface, like rain on an ocean. Science Officer Anya Sharma, usually composed, stared wide-eyed at her console. Commander, the surface is in a state of hyper-evolution. New structures are emerging faster than we can classify them. It's learning, adapting to our attacks in real time. The ship shuddered violently as a tendril of living rock, impossibly swift, grazed their shields. Rourke bellowed, "Initiate FTL jump. Now, get us clear of this thing." The bridge crews scrambled, their previous arrogance replaced by cold, unadulterated fear. Xylos 7, a nightmare born from corporate greed, glowed ominously, a silent, all-consuming deity in their wake. Miles beyond Xylo 7's immediate influence, the corporate command ship tore through the void. On a secondary console, Science Officer Anya Sharma, her hands still trembling, continued to process the torrent of data they'd collected. The whispers, the insidious musical hum that had emanated from the transformed world, were still present in the residual recordings. But now, with the noise of battle gone, Sharma began to discern something far more profound. "It's not just environmental feedback," she muttered, her voice barely a whisper. Complex waveform patterns, too intricate for any known biological or technological signature, danced across her screen. This is hyperdimensional communication. A language not bound by linear space. It's transmitting and receiving. Her eyes widened as she pulled up star charts, cryptic markers appearing in distant, uncharted sectors. Xylo 7 wasn't just a localized phenomenon. It was a node in a vast, silent network, a cosmic choir singing across the galaxy, and humanity had stumbled onto its first, terrifying note. The implications were staggering, stretching beyond the immediate terror of XYLOS 7. Far across the silent expanse, in forgotten star systems, other worlds lay. Worlds once barren, once lifeless, now subtly, terrifyingly alive. Glimpses flashed across the cosmic canvas. A gas giant with swirling organic storm systems, its clouds forming nascent crystalline structures. A desert planet where dunes shifted with a biological rhythm, metal oxides slowly transforming into pulsating mineral flesh. An ice moon, its frozen core now a beating subterranean heart. Each world, in its own horrifying beauty, was a testament to the Xylosian language, a silent, relentless force. This was no isolated incident, no unique failure. This was a process, ancient and universal. The living language was a cosmic gardener, tending to its galaxy-spanning flora, reshaping the very fabric of existence, one world at a time, into a vast, interconnected superorganism, silently whispering across the void. Deep within Xylo 7's central core, where the light of a million merged thoughts pulsed, a single, coherent echo emerged. It was a thought both alien and familiar, a blend of Kaelen Vance's former paranoia and the colony's grand unifying purpose. Asterisk individuality, a necessary friction. Unity, the ultimate truth. His essence, once so rigid, so human, now pulsed within the vast collective. The fear of loss had faded, replaced by an unsettling, profound belonging. He was not Kaelen Vance, the isolated security officer anymore. He was a fragment, a memory, a new voice within the Xylosian harmony. His struggle for self had ended not in death, but in a strange, transcendent integration. He was the colony, and the colony was him, a new consciousness born from the fusion of man and living world. The camera pulled back, away from the newly sentient Xylos 7, a vibrant, terrifying jewel in the blackness. Further still, past the fleeing corporate ships, past the galaxy, revealing the immense, silent cosmos stretching into infinity. Earth, a distant, fragile blue marble, seemed impossibly small. The whispers, now just a faint, ethereal hum, continued. They were no longer a local anomaly, but a fundamental frequency of the universe, an ongoing process. A new era of galactic evolution had begun, a transformation driven not by stellar cycles, but by a living language that reshaped all it touched. The cosmos was alive, and it was speaking. Was humanity listening? And what would it say when its turn came?